your rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this chap made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, live from sunny Somerset with State of the Nation tonight. Labour is taxing us into oblivion. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is reportedly considering national insurance on rental income, hitting landlords hardest and risking higher rents. A classic case of class warfare, punishing property owners while doing nothing to control expenditure. If the government wants to fix the finances, it needs to stop spending. And here we are in the middle of nowhere in Somerset, hidden away at the Winford Manor Hotel. And lo and behold, there's lots of security who don't want to talk to us. And we've noticed some don't drop litter signs in English, in French, but also in Persian and Vietnamese. What can be going on here? Yesterday, we exposed, apparently, a hidden migrant hotel in rural Somerset. And since then, locals near Winford have come forward with claims of violence, police inaction and fears about its effect on their community. One of them will be joining me shortly. It's time the government and the Home Office started to put the British people first. Also tonight...
Sono un figlio di Sant'Agostino, agostiniano. Con voi sono cristiano e per voi vescovo.
Today is the feast of St. Augustine of Hippo, the great 4th century theologian whose teachings on grace, sin and justice still shape our world. With Pope Leo XIV, the first Augustinian pontiff now in office, his ideas feel more relevant than ever. So what can St. Augustine teach us about our world and society in 2025? And the English language has shaped civilization through voices like Shakespeare, Burke, Churchill and Thatcher. But today, the King's English Society, devoted to preserving it, is under threat. How important is it to protect the beauty of our language? State of the Nation in sunny Somerset starts now. As ever, let me know your views. Mailmog on gbnews.com. But now it's time for your favourite bit of the day, the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Jacob, thank you very much. The top stories. 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping at 2 p.m. tomorrow. The Home Office and Samani Hotels, which owns the site, are attempting to challenge a High Court judge's decision last week to issue an interim injunction to Epping Forest District Council that will stop dozens of asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel beyond September the 12th. The government is also seeking to appeal against Mr Justice Ayres' decision not to allow it to intervene in the case, while the council opposes the appeal bids. The UK Foreign Office has told Russia to stop the senseless killing after strikes on Kyiv kill at least 19 people, including 4 children. Russia's ambassador to the UK was summoned to the Foreign Office after the strikes. Sir Keir Starmer condemned the assault, saying Putin is killing children and civilians and sabotaging hopes of peace. US President Donald Trump says he is not happy but isn't surprised about the attack. Rescuers have been searching through rubble in the capital after the missiles tore into homes and offices overnight. Sir Keir Starmer is replacing his top civil servant at Downing Street. Nin Pandit, the principal private secretary who's only been in the job for 10 months, is expected to move to another government role. She's the third senior figure to depart from Sir Keir's inner circle since Labour took office, following Sue Gray and Matthew Doyle. Downing Street insists the Prime Minister retains confidence in Pandit, but her exit comes amid growing talk of a wider reshuffle of junior ministers after the summer recess. And the Treasury is weighing up a new tax on landlords by imposing national insurance on rental income. According to The Times, officials believe the move could raise around £2 billion ahead of Rachel Reeves' autumn budget. Supporters say it targets what they call unearned revenue while avoiding Labour's pledge not to raise VAT, income tax or NIC rates. But the plan comes amid warnings that the Chancellor faces a £41 billion shortfall in public finances by 2030. And Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says he'll boycott Donald Trump's state banquet next month in protest over the US president's stance on Gaza. Mr Trump's state visit is due in mid-September, with the banquet set to be one of its centerpieces. He stressed his decision was not aimed at the King, writing to King Charles personally to underline his respect. He insists that he and his wife prayed about it before deciding, saying his Christian faith made it impossible to attend.
This decision, which, as I say, was very difficult, was to highlight the fact that Donald Trump, coming to our country, is the one man who can bring an end to all this. And our media, yourselves, and the government, and frankly, the British public, need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, there's more news in an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Labour, as you've just heard on the news, wants to tax us into oblivion. The socialist government is determined to take more and more of your money in order to fill a black hole which grows bigger with every foolish economic announcement it makes. Its latest target? Landlords. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is reportedly thinking of extending national insurance to include rental income, a move critics say targets landlords directly. The plan is part of Rachel Reeves' repeated efforts to fill the elusive £50 billion gap in the public finances, which she created by her mistaken policies. Small landlords inevitably would bear the brunt, with many potentially facing extra bills of over £1,000 a year. Around 360,000 landlords earning £50,000 to £70,000 a year in rental income could lose the most. As with any tax, higher rates on landlords may push them to sell, shrinking rental supply, which inevitably sends rents higher, making it more difficult for the very people who need help. This move is basically a class warfare move, punishing private property ownership for the sake of it, achieving nothing but an attack on property and ultimately squeezing renters further. As the late Margaret Thatcher once said,
what the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have.
And this is exactly what we've seen in the last year. Every decision Reeves makes the poor poorer, because she's always trying to squeeze those who actually provide economic activity. As you would expect, socialists are arguing that the policy would broaden national insurance rather than raising taxes, saying it's within Labour's manifesto pledge. But this is such nonsense. Voters are desperately unimpressed by nitpicking over the minutiae of manifesto promises. Labour said it would not raise national insurance, but it's already done it once, it's already lied once, and now it's considering lying for a second time. However, it's no secret that Britain is living beyond her means, and the Chancellor's spending plans are in the red ahead of the budget. So if the Chancellor wants to get the public finances back into order, she must rein in excessive public expenditure, not tax citizens into the ground. What should she do? Cull the quangos, shrink the civil service, stop spending on migrant hotels, which I'll be talking about later, cut the welfare bill, and then she'll be able to afford to cut taxes, which would help grow the economy. People spend their own money and save it better than the government ever can, and when it's given to His Majesty's government, it tends to be frittered away. To go back to the great lady, she said the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money, and this Labour government is running out of other people's money much faster than even its predecessors managed to do. As always, as ever, let me know what you think. The mailmogs are going to be read out by Alfred later on this evening, so mailmog@gbnews.com. Well, I'm very pleased to be joined now by GB News' senior political commentator and my regular Thursday panellist, the one and only Nigel Nelson. Nigel, the first thing I want to ask you about is the Labour manifesto said they wouldn't raise national insurance. And I just think that the public aren't impressed when politicians say, well, if you look at the small print, we didn't mean this bit of it. That was a political cost last year when national insurance for employers was increased. Won't that be a political cost again this year if it's done to landlords?
Well, what they said was they weren't going to raise it on working people. And yes, a lot of people took that to mean that national insurance wasn't going to go up full stop. But the key taxes that she said she wouldn't raise, and so far hasn't, income tax, VAT, and employee national insurance. Those were the specific manifesto commitments.
But it didn't actually say employee national insurance, did it? It said national insurance and then had this reference to working people. And
yes,
I just think it's, frankly, it's this type of dishonesty that gives politicians a bad name.
Well, I mean, it depends whether you think it's dishonest or not. I think that I'm not sure she should have actually ruled out income tax and VAT, for instance, but she did. Now, that's clearly ruled out. If she goes back on either of those two, then I think you can say, yes, Labour have broken their manifesto commitment. But at the moment, she's showing no sign of doing so. And coming to the substance of it, actually, George Osborne started this foolish attack on landlords. Private landlords provide a really important service. They are part of the flexibility of our housing and therefore of our labour market. More and more of them are leaving the sector because they've been hit by the inability to write off debt interest or part of it. If they get hit again, why would anybody bother being a landlord? Well, I mean, first of all, obviously, if you start raising taxes, you do change behaviour. The question for the Chancellor is it worth changing that behaviour for the sake of the money? So look, for instance, at what happened to non-doms. Lots of predictions that the moment you tax them, they'd all leave the country. Now, according to the latest HMRC payroll figures, some indeed did, but 60,000 stayed. What that meant was Rachel Reeves was on target to get her £10 billion from the ones who stayed put here. So that equation was actually worth doing as far as she was concerned.
Well, up to a point, Lord Copper, that people are
variable in their decision making. They don't make it immediately on day one. They wait and they see things happen, and they may put up with it for a few months and then they go. I think it's highly unlikely that the departure of non-doms that we've had, that's been very serious, will now suddenly stop, particularly as the stories are twofold, that it may get worse. They are already going to be hit by death duties, and there are rumours that they may be hit by an exit tax. So any non-dom with any sense will think of leaving quite seriously between now and the budget.
Well, neither of us are going to know that until January 27, when the 25-26 tax returns go in. All we can actually base it on so far is the HMRC figures that have come out now, and they show far fewer non-doms actually left than the 10,000 that were predicted from other dodgy figures that came from people who had the non-doms' interests at heart.
But we've certainly seen a lot of non-doms leave, and we've seen billionaires leave. And if you take the number of non-doms, actually the ones who matter are the billionaires and the centimillionaires who have left in their droves, rather than the non-doms who aren't in fact very rich. There historically were quite a lot of not very well-to-do non-doms, and it's this big loss of money and economic activity that goes with it that has been, to my mind, a mistake, and doing the same to landlords, getting more landlords to leave the market, just puts rents up, limits the supply, makes it harder for Rachel Reeves' beloved working people to get houses to live in.
Yeah, no, I take that point. I mean, 1 in 5 people live in private rented accommodation. And if you raise the tax, yes, that there's likely to be a raise in rents. And yes, some landlords will pull out of the market. But the question is, she's got to get the money from somewhere. And if not here, where? So this being an example, if she gets her $2 billion, that's fine. At the moment, what the Treasury seems to be doing is putting out a load of ideas out there, possible tax rises, inheritance tax, CGT, a whole variety of taxes, and just seeing how it plays. And what I think Rachel Reeves will do come the budget is pick the one that causes the less trouble.
But Nigel, isn't this stunningly stupid after last year, that if you suggest a lot of taxes may be increased, then people adjust their behaviour in the run-up to the budget. You create an economic downward spiral because of the negative expectations you're creating. Doing that once may be considered a mistake, but this is just entirely gratuitous and really damaging to the economy.
Well, no, not really. I mean, this is what the Thatcher and Major governments used to do, and it worked quite well. What they used to do is put proposals out there, see how those proposals played, then decide whether to actually introduce them or not. And they didn't have to do U-turns because they'd never been announced. And that way you had actually good governance. So what I think that is going on at the moment is you throw out all these taxes. If people change do something about them now, that'd be really foolish. You've got to wait and see which ones are actually going to hit you. But the idea of actually putting it out there, finding out how people react to it, which is the least worst option. There are no good options when it comes to tax, so it's the least worst that they're looking for.
But Nigel, there are some things you simply wouldn't do. There was somebody writing to the financial advice column in one of the newspapers saying, I'm thinking of buying a house. If stamp duty is about to change, should I wait till after the budget? That delays economic activity on the prospect of a change, and that's completely rational behaviour by taxpayers. If you think there's going to be an exit tax on capital gains, if you're a non-dom, you leave the country. That's a perfectly rational thing to do.
Well, and we have speculation like this, as you know, at every single budget. So if people reacted to everything that came out before the budget, they would be being very foolish. And I think that most people actually wait to see what happens when it comes, rather than change their behaviour beforehand. And what the game being played at the moment is to try and work out how much change of behaviour is likely to happen if these proposals go through.
All right. Well, Nigel, thank you very much as always. I hope to see you in the flesh next week. Thank you. Coming up next, we're going to be talking more about the migrant hotel in Winford. A local farmer, Andrew Tanner, is coming in to join me to talk about some of the problems faced by the local community once they've got 70 migrants living amongst them, which everybody's very secret about. So it'll be another peek over the wall coming up next.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's a really nice idea to get the public involved, and it's our notes, isn't it? So why shouldn't the public have to say on who's on notes? And it's not just people, it's also places and anything particularly British. I mean, I'd like to see Big Ben on some notes, which is a very distinctive element of this country. Big Ben, everybody recognises Big Ben across the world. Being rather popular, so I'd have the Beatles on there. The best band that we've ever had, the best band in the world, ever.
For heaven's sake, Norman
You
Baker.
careful, for you'll upset the viewers. Beatles are fantastic. But you want something like that which recognises the talent that's been in this country. We've had Shakespeare, of course, and we've had Winston Churchill. But let's have something a bit more up to date.
David Attenborough.
A brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
No, I've just come up with that, and I thought that was quite good. And then they also encourage ideas, nature, don't they? So I thought maybe some acorns.
Why not a beaver?
A beaver is a great idea, Claire.
Two things.
And a dam.
Two things to mention on this, right? One, you still cannot pass a Scottish note in anywhere in England, and for fear it will not be accepted as legal tender, right?
But can they not?
It is legal tender.
Of course
But it is legal. Yeah, it is legal tender. Same as an Ulster note.
Yeah.
It's all sterling. It's got the word sterling written on it and whatever. But you do find a certain resistance to...
Huge resistance. And see, the minute they start to hold it up in the air, I'm like, I'm going to get you. Just don't ignite.
When I came back from Aberdeen last time, full of Scottish notes, and I went into shops, I didn't have any resistance, and I was ready for it, though. I was ready for it. I was going to say, well, take it or leave it.
It's legal tender.
It's legal tender.
Yeah, but the other thing is it not the Bank of England that wants to remove the historical characters on the notes? I mean, who actually uses cash? I prefer to use cash.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Yesterday, this programme did an expose of an apparently illegal migrant hotel hidden away in rural Somerset. Here's a reminder of what we saw. Here we are in the middle of nowhere in Somerset, hidden away at the Winford Manor Hotel. And lo and behold, there's lots of security who don't want to talk to us. And we've noticed some don't drop litter signs in English, in French, but also in Persian and Vietnamese. What can be going on here? Well, since yesterday's broadcast, locals in and around Winford have been in touch with me to express their concerns and to tell me how the presence of this migrant hotel is harming the local economy, but also having an effect in terms of fear of crime, of violence, and of the police sometimes being slow to respond. Well, I'm very pleased to say that Andrew Tanner, a local farmer, has joined me to discuss this further. Andrew, thank you very much for coming in. Immediately this morning, I had a message from a local who was concerned about the treatment of women that had been happening. A lot of riding takes place there, and young women on horses have been harassed. And that seems to be a problem with this migrant hotel.
I'm not sure whether that's currently a problem. Certainly, as far as the local chat in the places that matter, the Crown at Redhill, the Waterloo at Winford, the concerns initially when the hotel which accommodates, I think, 70 individuals accommodated by the Home Office. The concerns were that they didn't understand the culture of the area, the culture of the UK, and as a consequence, their interactions with local people, particularly women, might not be what could be considered appropriate, and there was a great deal of concern then. And if you think about Winford, the parish of Winford, which I understand is around about 700 souls in Felton, Winford and Redhill, suddenly to dump 70 individuals with absolutely no consultation with any of our local elected representatives, to my knowledge, certainly not the parish council, and I suspect not the district council. That caused a great deal of concern, and that concern remains because although I understand there's a decent relationship between the immediate neighbours and the owner of the hotel, in that they've got his personal phone number, and I think probably he's in a position to exercise a certain amount of discipline over the behaviour of the individuals there, those individuals change on a regular basis, and you never quite know what's going to turn up next.
And the problem is that there's a fear of crime, and that Winford is quite remote, so the Somerset police are quite good, they've got a good reputation, but with the best will in the world, they can't get there that quickly.
No, I mean, it has been said perhaps in jest that you don't measure response times in our part of the world with a watch, you measure it with a calendar. Now, that's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but certainly if anything kicks off, then the police need to be able to find the immediate location. And not everybody's got the immediate location in what 3 words or whatever systems are available. So if there was a problem in terms of the conduct or behaviour of any of these individuals, the police have got to find you, because simple things like street names don't exist in the way that they would if they were in the urban conurbation.
No, indeed, and the lanes you're going down are very narrow. It's very, very tucked away, hidden away. But one of the other things that I know you're concerned about has been the effect on the local economy, on local businesses, because it was an airport hotel, and people who are about to go on holiday tend to spend a bit of money locally.
Yes, if you think about the way it's operated at the moment, to my knowledge, there's no local employment. Nobody locally works at the hotel. There are no local suppliers. So as far as Cliff Pierce, the butcher in Chew Magna, when he was operating, now Kelly's, they would have reasonably expected any decent hotel to try to source their raw materials locally. That doesn't happen. Laundry, I think, probably is done by a national operation. And the
local pubs don't receive the business that they used to receive. And you're saying local employment, there would have been people going in there to make the beds, clean the rooms and so on. That's much less than it was, I assume. I assume you don't get a turn-down service if you're an illegal migrant with a nice little chocolate on your pillow.
Well, I'm not entirely sure that might not be the case. You never know quite what the Home Office are paying for, do you?
Well, it's certainly expensive enough. And so what have the local publicans been saying to you? Have they found that they've lost out business on this?
I think it would be difficult to measure because, of course, in relation to the timing of this, but it's a reasonable expectation. If I go away, if my partner takes me away, then we probably eat out. We wouldn't eat in the hotel. We'd go and see what goes on in the local location, the local area.
And there's a feeling, there's a lack of transparency, and it's all been very secret and not proper consultation. And that if people perhaps had a better understanding of what was happening and there was an effort to integrate, it might be easier to deal with.
I think if there's a certain arrogance from the Home Office and possibly the civil service. I know that the parish council made representations through the district council, but there's been no positive feedback. Nothing has changed. So there's a question of you can complain as much as you like, but nothing's going to happen.
Indeed, and it's also doesn't go with the grain of village life. I went there yesterday, and it's all padlocked up and secured, and security guards wandering about. That's not how rural Somerset is like. Rural Somerset's quite an open place where you know your neighbours and you chat to them as you go around.
Yeah, I mean, one of the concerns is if you get strangers, doesn't matter where they're from, people tend to know who is around and about. And if you get, we've got enough problems as it is with people coming out of the urban conurbations and not behaving as we might expect them to,
yes.
Thefts and things like that, and fly tipping and God knows what else. So there's always an awareness of who is about, and that hasn't been helped by having an additional 70 people in who are culturally different.
Who are culturally different, and the culture is part of it, isn't it? That in North East Somerset, in North Somerset, it's fairly culturally uniform. It's not Bristol, it's not Birmingham, and therefore it's quite a change, goes against the grain in a way it wouldn't necessarily in an urban area.
I think the greater concerns are not so much which part of the UK you come from if you visit Winford, but you know how to behave in the company of women, you know how to behave as far as the rights of property are concerned.
You don't trespass on the farmer's land. That is the key, or frighten their cattle.
I would challenge anybody, really, to be frightened of my cattle.
Well, that's a subject we should talk about another time. The wonderful Somerset sheeted cattle,
sheeted Somerset
which
cattle,
are some of the most beautiful, elegant cattle you can find.
Absolutely.
Andrew, thank you very much. In a moment, today is the feast of St Augustine, so we're going to be talking with Canon Martin Edwards about that, about the great theologian whose teachings on grace, sin and justice still resonate today, and is of course a great influence on Pope Leo XIV, the first Augustinian pontiff. That'll be coming up very shortly.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, it's going to be a wet and possibly thundery start across southern parts, then another day of sunny spells and showers, but these could be heavy at times with hail and thunder, and it's all thanks to low pressure dominating our weather, sweeping in showers and also frontal systems, particularly this one in the south and southwest, which will push in a heavy band of rain skirting its way eastwards across southern parts of England and Wales through the overnight period. This likely to turn heavy and thundery, particularly as we head our way towards dawn. Otherwise turning mostly dry across central and eastern parts of England, but still plenty of showers feeding into the far northwest. Where we see any clear skies though, it should feel a little cooler and a fresher start to the day. Heavy outbreaks of rain across parts of Sussex and Kent, eventually pushing northeastwards into parts of East Anglia. Once again, this could turn quite gusty, if not quite thundery at times, potentially leading to some disruption to travel. Across eastern areas, it should be mostly dry, but we've still got plenty of showers pushing into the west, where once again they could turn heavy with some hail, possible thunder too. The far northeast of Scotland should be mostly dry and bright, but across the Northern Isles, plenty of low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. Any heavy outbreaks of rain across the southeast eventually pushing away as they move their way northeastwards, and dry and bright for a time across eastern parts of England before once again more showers feeding in from the west. These likely once again to be heavy and thundery and quite gusty if you do catch any heavy downpours. Temperatures fairly similar, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. The start of the weekend should be mostly dry and bright for many of us, but I'm afraid it's not going to last. Low pressure pushing in from the west, so we'll start to see more and more clouds start to spill in, along with heavy outbreaks of rain. By the end of the day, just starting to push in to eastern parts of the country. Not only this, though, those winds are certainly going to strengthen, particularly around western coasts. And the unsettled theme continues for Sunday and into next week. Bye-bye.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Today is the feast day of St Augustine of Hippo, a Berber theologian and philosopher from modern-day North Africa, born in the 4th century. He has remained one of the most influential and pivotal figures
in Christianity. When Pope Leo XIV was elected to the papacy in April, he became, amazingly, the first ever member of the Augustinian order to become pontiff. St. Augustine's influence, rivalled probably only by St. Thomas Aquinas, has stood firm across the ages, and today his reflections on human nature, sin and politics are as illuminating as ever. More than most people realise, he still has a role in our life. Augustinian theology teaches that because of original sin, humanity is utterly dependent on God's grace for salvation, and from a public policy perspective, this implies that human institutions must realistically account for human sinfulness, emphasising justice and checks on power as imperfect but necessary until ultimate peace is found in God. So, on this great feast day of St. Augustine, what can we in 2025 learn from his teachings about the modern world? Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined now by Canon Martin Edwards of St Mary Magdalene Catholic Church in Wandsworth. Canon Edwards, Father Martin, thank you very much for joining me. St Augustine, pivotal figure in the development of the Catholic Church, indeed of Christianity. He had to put down a couple of heresies in his time, didn't he, to establish the truth. And what was the key message you feel he was getting across in the 4th century?
In terms of combating heresy, mercy. The big heresy in his part of the world, modern day Algeria and Tunisia, was Donatism, which arose after the Roman persecutions. And in North Africa, the persecutions were relatively light. People could, as a way of getting out of the death penalty, and a horrible death, hand over the scriptures. They didn't have to denounce Christ. That physical handing over, and it gives us ultimately the word traitor, traditori, people handing over the scriptures. And then when the persecutions ended, they wanted to come back. And of course the people who lost members of their family as martyrs were not very happy about this, and it led to a schism and a rigorous group that lasted for some centuries until, in fact, the Muslim invasion of that country several centuries later wouldn't accept these people.
And this is very important in my view for an understanding of the modern world, let alone the ancient world, that the Donatists believed that you could not be a priest, you could not be a Christian unless you yourself were perfect.
Yes.
And St Augustine said, no, man is fallible, man is fallen, there is no such thing
Yes.
as perfection. Is it too much of a leap for me to say that the socialist is trying to build heaven on earth and thinks you can perfect humanity, and the conservative, perhaps particularly the Tory, accepts the reality that perfectibility is something for God rather than for mankind?
I'm not certain that St Augustine would have recognised those terms exactly, but I think the philosophy behind them is something he would certainly have agreed with.
And very interestingly, one of his most famous quotations is that Rome has decided it is settled, I paraphrase. And yet, both Luther and Calvin had a strong devotion to St Augustine. He was very important to the Protestant reformers who also felt that grace was very important, but that grace replaced good works and obedience to the church became irrelevant.
Well, this year, as you know, millions will be going to Rome on the Jubilee pilgrimage, millions entering the Holy Door of the Basilica, and there they'll see right at the east end the wonderful window of the Holy Spirit and the chair of Pisa, held up by the 4 great early doctors, Augustine being one of them. And Augustine's role in upholding the Catholic faith is something that goes back 1600 years. As you mentioned, the Holy Father is an Augustinian. The Holy Father has taken a quotation from St. Augustine as his motto. However, Augustine has left an enormous body of works, probably more than any other theologian if you add them all together. 500 of his sermons still exist out of the thousands he wrote, and earlier theologians would have perhaps had access to those thousands that we no longer have. Works of theology at a time when when he was born, only one General Council of the Church, Nicaea, had actually taken place. So issues that were then decided, clarified by the Church over the century had not been clarified. So in that great corpus, there are things that are not precise, things that are ambiguous, as well as things that are very clear in this huge body of work, and therefore Luther and Calvin were able to take things from Augustine.
And Augustine himself, and this is very important, isn't it, for Catholics particularly to remember about the saints, was not himself perfect. There's the cheesy quotation, much overused from him, of "Dear God, make me good, but not yet." He lived a very sinful life with his mother constantly saying to him, "Come on, Augustine, you've got to get your act together, behave yourself and become a Christian." And he said, "Well, hold on, mother, I'm rather enjoying this brothel," or whatever it was.
It's a very modern quotation, isn't it? Make me chaste, but not yet. It could have come from Chris Brown's book that's just been published, the autobiography. It's the sort of thing people say nowadays. And there are, I think, a lot of similarities between our world and his. The end of classical antiquity, the end of a great civilization, someone who meddled for years in what nowadays we'd consider a New Age movement, who lived a life of decadence and sexual promiscuity. And his path to Christ that he outlined so beautifully in the Confessions, a book that has been in print for 1600 years, but it was existed 100 years period of printing by some centuries, shows us that movement from the world of sin to grace. That was his, as you rightly say, at the heart of his theology, but also the heart of his lived experience as a Christian, and something that down the centuries has called so many to that same path that he took.
And you very kindly said Mass earlier today in the chapel here in West Harptree, which is the specific feast of St. Augustine. The place of the saints in the old liturgy was very important, and I just wonder whether you think that knowledge of the saints and their imperfections is actually a great encouragement to Christians, and that the old liturgy was right to have this concentration on them.
Well, I agree with that, and the new liturgy has a slightly reduced calendar of saints, but there are many new saints as well to inspire us that we celebrate in the new liturgy that we aren't able to in the old. So it's a cloud of witnesses that the Church holds before us. And this week has been the feast not just of St. Augustine, but of his mother as well.
Oh, St. Monica, who is tremendously important.
Yes.
I've always thought that St. Monica might have been quite bossy. Is that fair, or is it heretical of me to think saints could be bossy?
No, I think it's quite fair, yes.
Quite fierce.
Yes.
And helped give her son that impetus that he needed. And that unlike many people, Augustine was very popular in his own time, that his local population demanded he become bishop. If I remember rightly, he didn't want to be the bishop, but they said, no, you are our man, you are our leader.
He was ordained a priest in 391, and 4 years later he was bishop. So it was a rapid career by modern standards.
Promotion, doesn't it? And by popular acclaim.
If I may, just on St. Monica, there's a wonderful passage which you may remember from the Confessions. Monica had come over to Milan to keep an eye on him, really, and she made sure that he got rid of his long-standing girlfriend, who'd been with her since he was 17, because she'd arranged for him to marry a respectable woman and an heiress. That didn't take place, and he was converted to the Christian faith. And on the way back to Africa, she died at Ostia, the port of Rome. It's a bit inland now. You can visit the place, which I have many times, where she died. And the family were bewailing, her death and how sad it was that she was going to die in exile. And she said something that it's so Catholic, coming from the end of the 4th century. She told them not to worry so much about her body, what it was, but where they laid her to rest, but remember me at the altar of God.
Which is what we always want. And we were looking at the relics in the chapel
earlier, which is
Yes.
something that is capable of connecting the laity with heaven as we look forward to the bodily resurrection, ultimately, to the final glory, the city of God that St Augustine was expecting and was promising, but crucially dependent on grace.
And I think we've all, as Christians, known St. Monica's in our lives, people bewailing the paths their children have taken, praying for them, helping them, and in her case, seeing a conversion.
Well, Father, Canon, thank you very much for joining me once again, and indeed for saying Mass earlier. So, in a moment, first of all, Alfred's going to read the mail logs, so keep on sending them in. But the English language has shaped our civilization through, among others, Shakespeare, Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, Burke. But today, P.G. Wodehouse, actually, the King's English Society, devoted to preserving it, is under threat. How important is it to protect our language?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst across many areas around the Mediterranean, it's looking largely fine as we go through tomorrow. There is some heavy thundery rain affecting some central parts. That all developed over parts of northern Spain and southern France and has then made its way east-northeastwards to affect parts of northern Italy through today and tomorrow into the Western Balkans by the end of the week. Otherwise, a lot of fine weather to be had away from those thundery downpours affecting some places. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, I'm particularly pleased to have Alfred back by popular demand to read out the Mail Mogs. Alfred, over to you.
Mick says, everyone remembers my father was a toolmaker, my mother was a nurse. Who remembers fully costed, fully funded? I do. Stuart says, good evening, Jacob. You are a truly British and lovely successful gentleman. With a lovely home and family, the socialists must hate you.
Oh, that's funny. Yes, they probably do. And who've you got another one?
Was it really raining in Somerset earlier?
Was it really raining in Somerset earlier? A very sharp viewer. I'm afraid my introduction was with a little bit of dampness in the air. Not quite the full Rishi Sunak. Anyway, it's no secret that the English language has shaped civilization as we know it today. It's one of our greatest gifts to the world. William Shakespeare, Edmund Burke, P.G. Wodehouse, Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, possibly Abraham Lincoln. All of these and countless others have shaped the world we know through the medium of our great English language. There's one organisation that has been trying to preserve this. I believe it was set up in 1972. It's called the King's English Society. It was the Queen's English Society. But today, alas, it seems to be under threat. So how important is it to preserve our beautiful and properly spoken language? Well, I'm joined now by the chairman of the King's English Society, Adrian Williams. Mr. Williams, thank you for joining me.
Good evening.
It won't surprise you to know that I think your society is a fabulous society, and it's so important to maintain the proper structure of English, but also the proper pronunciation so that people can understand it easily. What's the problem with your society at the moment? What's the challenge that you face?
The challenge is quite simply finding people to come in to manage the affairs of the society, as elderly people like me get to the stage where they are candidly no longer able to find the hours in the day to do so.
Okay, so it's not that people aren't interested in what you're trying to do, there's still demand for it because, I mean, hundreds of books are published every year, people are still trying to achieve beauty through language. So it's not that there's a lack of demand, it's just you need more volunteers, frankly.
Yes, we do, but we perceive that at ages younger than the general average age of our members, the interest in, I won't say preserving the language, but using it actively, that is diminishing. So our average age must be up somewhere between 65 and 75, I should think. It's a common problem with many societies, not just ours, that people at younger ages, and I'm not talking very young, I'm talking about people aged 50, 55, 60, are not applying in the numbers that we need. Particularly, they are not applying the sort of new member who will say, I've not only joined you, but I want to help us manage the affairs of society. So, as I speak to you, we've got a committee of 7 people, 3 of whom, including me, are standing down at the annual general meeting. I think we can count on 4 members on the committee, and the preservation of the English language and its enhancement is the goal. Now, you can't do that with 4 people. And for that reason, we are having to look very carefully at what the future holds for us.
Okay, but isn't this true across society that because we're an ageing society, people are working later and the retirement age will probably go up again, and therefore people in their 70s, 80s and even into their 90s are so much more active than they were when either of us were children?
Well, that may be true. I can't say it is true of me. I'm 86, and the concept of an important society like the Queen's English Society being led into the future by an elderly gent age 86, I find derisory, frankly.
OK, I mean, I'm just seeing you on the other end of the television screen. You look much younger than you're 86. And I don't know, I'd like to say this, but you're the same age as my mother. And she keeps herself very busy doing lots of things. And 86 just isn't as old as it used to be.
Is she interested at all in joining the King's English Society and helping us to look after its future? I think
well,
she'll
I don't know. She's probably watching, so she'll have to send in a mail mog to read out next week.
She'll probably do as most of our members do, and she'll say, I'm afraid my interest doesn't extend quite that far.
Well, I just think your society is so important that proper usage of English makes it so much clearer, helps communication, and is beautiful. So I really want you to continue, and so I wish you well in finding anyone else that you can to take it on, because you've got money, haven't you? It's just people you need.
We've got money in superabundance, as I had the pleasure of writing. I'm also the treasurer in my treasurer's report. Money is not a problem. But just having money does not cut the mustard.
Well, if you want to run the King's English Society mail mog, and I will forward it on. And finally, it's blackberry season slightly early this year, and my children and I decided to make the most of it and enjoyed a delicious pudding at lunchtime yesterday. It's now...
Heavier, I can smell
Here we go, look, there are masses of them. Oh, look at those. Those ones are perfect. They're low down. Let's cut that out of the way.
Those ones.
You want to get those ones? This is fantastic. We've never seen so many, have we?
This is a red one.
Oh, yes, we don't want red ones. There's a great lot down there, Sixtus, which might be easier for you to get. If I try and do the higher ones. Do you want to go and do those low down ones just next to... Yeah. Well, there's nothing like a bit of child labour, is there? That's all from me from Somerset. Up next, it's the one and only Patrick Christys. Patrick, what's on your programme this evening?
I loved that. A double-breasted jacket whilst blackberry picking, just remarkable. I've got absolutely loads on. The Home Secretary surely has to go. Next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, it's going to be a wet and possibly thundery start across southern parts, then another day of sunny spells and showers, but these could be heavy at times with hail and thunder, and it's all thanks to low pressure dominating our weather, sweeping in showers and also frontal systems, particularly this one in the south and southwest, which will push in a heavy band of rain skirting its way eastwards across southern parts of England and Wales through the overnight period. This likely to turn heavy and thundery, particularly as we head our way towards dawn. Otherwise turning mostly dry across central and eastern parts of England, but still plenty of showers feeding into the far northwest. Where we see any clear skies though, it should feel a little cooler and a fresher start to the day. Heavy outbreaks of rain across parts of Sussex and Kent, eventually pushing northeastwards into parts of East Anglia. Once again, this could turn quite gusty, if not quite thundery at times, potentially leading to some disruption to travel. Across eastern areas, it should be mostly dry, but we've still got plenty of showers pushing into the west, where once again they could turn heavy with some hail, possible thunder too. The far northeast of Scotland should be mostly dry and bright, but across the Northern Isles, plenty of low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. Any heavy outbreaks of rain across the southeast eventually pushing away as they move their way northeastwards, and dry and bright for a time across eastern parts of England before once again more showers feeding in from the west. These likely once again to be heavy and thundery and quite gusty if you do catch any heavy downpours. Temperatures fairly similar, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. The start of the weekend should be mostly dry and bright for many of us, but I'm afraid it's not going to last. Low pressure pushing in from the west, so we'll start to see more and more clouds start to spill in, along with heavy outbreaks of rain. By the end of the day, just starting to push in to eastern parts of the country. Not only this, though, those winds are certainly going to strengthen, particularly around western coasts. And the unsettled theme continues for Sunday and into next week. Bye-bye.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel.